Aliens thought they were alone. Then Earth's warships arrived, HFY Sci-Fi Stories. The galaxy was quiet, almost too quiet. For thousands of years, the Cathari Dominion had ruled over countless star systems. Their fleets glided through space like shadows, claiming planets and bending them to their will. They were confident, experienced, and feared across the stars. In their arrogance, they believed no other civilization could match their power. The Cathari thought they were alone. On the edge of their territory, a tiny signal flickered through the void. It was faint, strange, and completely unremarkable at first glance. But someone noticed it, one of the Dominion's scouts, and curiosity replaced the usual boredom. The signal came from a small, blue planet far from the core systems, a world the Cathari had never considered worth attention. It pulsed with a rhythm unlike anything they had seen. The Council might have ignored it, but the scouts' data was clear. Life was growing there, and it was clever life. The scout ship, a sleek shadow with no name, drifted silently toward the blue planet. Its sensors scanned the surface carefully, mapping cities, rivers, and strange structures made by creatures the Cathari had never encountered. These beings were small, fragile, and slow compared to Cathari standards. Yet they moved in patterns that suggested intelligence. There were machines, moving objects, and lights that shifted in ways that hinted at complex thinking. The scout sensors could not fully understand them, but the signs were clear. They were not animals. They were something else. From orbit, the planet looked peaceful. Oceans sparkled under a yellow sun, clouds drifted lazily, and green lands stretched across continents. But the activity below was unlike anything the Cathari had studied before. Tiny metal machines moved over the ground, carrying materials, constructing buildings, and transporting creatures inside. The creatures themselves gathered in large groups, speaking in sounds and gestures that the Cathari could barely detect. There were conflicts, yes, but also cooperation. The planet was alive with industry, strategy, and intelligence, and the ET scout could not ignore it. When the scout returned to the Dominion with its report, the High Council gathered in their immense hall, a place filled with strange lights and hovering energy fields. The Council's voices echoed across the chamber, discussing the findings. "This world is primitive," one elder said, his scales shimmering under the light. "They are weak. They cannot resist us. There is no threat." Another council member frowned. "Perhaps," she replied, "but intelligence is dangerous. If we underestimate them, even for a few decades, they may grow stronger than we expect." The discussion grew tense. The Cathari were not accustomed to doubt. Doubt was a dangerous thing. Still, the decision was made. The council chose caution, sending a small fleet of scouts and warships toward the planet. They were to observe, not interfere. The Cathari did not imagine that these creatures, whom they called humans, could ever pose a real challenge. They expected nothing more than curiosity and confusion. The Dominion believed it would be an easy study, a brief diversion before they moved on to greater conquests. As the Cathari fleet approached, the humans below carried on with their lives, unaware of the silent watchers above. Ships streaked across the skies, factories belched smoke, and cities hummed with energy. Humans argued, laughed, and created things the aliens could not fully understand. From the perspective of the Cathari, their technology seemed crude and chaotic. Yet there was something in the patterns of their activity that fascinated the scouts. These creatures solved problems quickly, adapted to changes, and even created tools that the Cathari had not anticipated. They were messy, unpredictable, and strangely effective. The scouts reported their observations in real time. "They are building larger machines," one transmitted. "They work together in groups, coordinating movement. Their minds are smaller, but their adaptability is remarkable." The Dominion had never faced such a combination of fragility and cleverness. There was no war yet, no fleets to challenge them, only life, intelligence, and potential. Still, potential could be dangerous, and the Cathari, who had not faced a serious challenge in thousands of years, felt something unfamiliar stir in their hearts: curiosity and a hint of unease. As the fleet lingered in orbit, the humans continued to grow. Cities expanded, machines became more complex, and signals from the planet reached deeper into space. The Cathari watched, recording everything, preparing to report back to the Council. They still believed themselves supreme, still thought they were alone in the galaxy in a way that mattered. But even as they observed, the first seeds of change were quietly forming. The humans below were learning, adapting, and preparing in ways that the Cathari could not yet imagine. One day, far in the future, the Dominion would realize that this tiny blue planet was not as insignificant as they believed. For now, though, the galaxy remained quiet. The Cathari watched and the humans continued their lives, blissfully unaware that their world was being examined. The first steps of a new story were beginning, and neither side could predict the collision that would change the galaxy forever. The scouts circled the blue planet silently, sending streams of data back to the Cathari Dominion. Every day they recorded more activity, more signs of intelligence, and more proof that these creatures, called humans, were not simple beings. The Cathari had expected a primitive, chaotic species, something that could be observed and then forgotten. Instead, they saw a world full of motion, ideas, and unexpected coordination. It unsettled them more than they were willing to admit. From space, the humans seemed fragile. Cities were clustered, easily seen from orbit, yet they were full of machines that moved with purpose. Vehicles traveled on well-marked roads, carrying goods and people. Factories produced materials in endless repetition, and lights blinked in, patterns the scouts could not fully decode. What fascinated the Cathari most was the humans themselves. They interacted in groups, forming teams that could solve problems efficiently. They adapted quickly when conditions changed. A bridge damaged by a storm would be rebuilt. A machine broken in an accident would be repaired. Small, fragile, but resilient, humans were clever in ways the Dominion had rarely seen outside their own species. One scout ship hovered above a large coastal city. The humans below did not know they were being watched, but the scout sensors recorded everything. There were ships in the harbor, aircraft rising into the sky, and humans moving in organized patterns through the streets. They argued, planned, and cooperated with a level of complexity that made the Cathari uncomfortable. Their technology was crude compared to the Dominion, yet it functioned, and it worked well. The aliens could not understand how such fragile beings could survive in the harsh environment of their own planet, yet somehow they did. Back on the Dominion's command station, the High Council examined the scout data. "They are primitive," one council member said, his voice heavy with pride. "They cannot fight us, they cannot survive in space. They are weak." Another elder shook her head, her eyes glowing faintly with concern. "Weak? Perhaps. But they are adaptive. Their thinking is unpredictable. This is not a species we should ignore. They could grow dangerous if we give them time." The council debated fiercely, each argument echoing through the high chamber. For the first time in centuries, the Cathari questioned their supremacy. Meanwhile, humans continued with their lives, unaware of the silent eyes above. Scientists experimented with new engines, engineers tested strange machines, and governments argued over resources and plans for expansion. Humans were messy, uncoordinated at times, and prone to mistakes. Yet there was something remarkable about the way they learned from their failures. A broken bridge would not stop them. A failed experiment would not stop them. Each obstacle became a lesson, and each lesson made them stronger. One day, a small human satellite launched for communications passed close to a scout ship. The Cathari watched it drift, marveling at the precision and ingenuity that had gone into its design. "They are learning to reach beyond their planet," the scout transmitted. "This is faster than we expected." The Dominion Council began to take notice. These humans were not simply surviving. They were reaching for the stars. The Cathari decided to send more scouts. Larger ships, with stronger sensors and better recording equipment, entered orbit. They moved cautiously, scanning cities, forests, oceans, and deserts. Every signal from Earth, every human invention, Every sign of industry was catalogued. The more they observed, the more they realized the humans were not a simple species. They were unpredictable, creative, and growing quickly. In the cities, humans began to notice strange signals in their skies. At first, people thought they were meteors, satellites, or natural phenomena. Scientists were puzzled but intrigued. Military organizations tracked unexplained objects, but their reports were dismissed by higher authorities as errors. Still, humans studied, observed, and experimented. Their curiosity was endless. They did not know the Watchers were alien scouts, yet their actions were shaping the first contact in the galaxy. The Cathari were growing concerned. They had always ruled without challenge, confident in their supremacy. But Earth was different. The humans' creativity, their resilience, and their rapid growth made the Dominion uneasy. It was one thing to conquer a weak species, but these humans could adapt, learn, and possibly even fight back. For the first time, the Cathari realized that their universe might not be as empty as they believed. Something new had appeared, something that could change everything. As the fleet of scouts continued to hover above the planet, recording every movement, a sense of unease spread among the Cathari. They had expected weakness, but instead they saw potential. The humans were fragile, yes, but they were clever, resourceful, and unyielding. And in the silence of space, the first seeds of a confrontation were quietly planted. Neither side fully understood it yet, but the galaxy had already begun to shift. The humans continued their work, building, learning, and dreaming. The Cathari continued to watch, uneasy and curious. For now there was no war, no conflict, only observation. But the tension hung in the void like a quiet storm waiting to break. When it came, neither species would ever be the same. The Cathari Dominion had never faced uncertainty before. For thousands of years, their fleets had traveled through space without opposition, conquering planets and claiming resources with ease. To them, the galaxy had always belonged to the strongest, and they were the strongest. Yet Earth challenged that belief. The more data the scouts sent, the more the Council began to realize that humans were unpredictable, resourceful, and capable of learning quickly. In the grand chamber of the High Council, elders gathered in a circle of light. The walls shimmered, with energy screens showing the blue planet, its cities alive with motion. Some council members spoke with certainty. "These humans are weak," one said, her voice firm. "Their machines are crude. Their weapons cannot reach the stars. They cannot oppose us. Why do we waste time debating?" Another elder shook his head. "Do not underestimate them. Weakness is only physical. Their minds are clever. Their adaptability is remarkable. They learn from mistakes, improve quickly, and organize in ways we do not understand. They may not fight yet, but if we ignore them, they could grow into a threat." His voice carried tension, something unfamiliar in the council. The debate grew heated. Some argued for immediate action, destroy the humans before they had a chance to reach space. Others suggested observing longer, learning more about their abilities. Few voices proposed caution, warning that hasty action could lead to unexpected consequences. For the first time in millennia, the council did not speak as one. Doubt had entered their ranks. Meanwhile, humans continued unaware of the storm forming in space above them. They built new satellites, experimented with energy sources, and trained their military in preparation for unknown threats. Some governments detected strange signals and unidentified objects in orbit, but most dismissed them as natural or human-made phenomena. Humans were curious, cautious, and industrious. They adapted, solved problems, and worked together, even when their efforts were messy or imperfect. The Cathari fleet lingered near Earth, sending additional scouts to study these creatures. Each report was more troubling than the last. Humans repaired damaged infrastructure in days, while the Cathari expected months. They created machines that operated in unpredictable ways, and their strategies for organizing resources and defending their cities were unlike anything the Dominion had seen. These humans had potential. They were not just surviving, they were learning, growing, and preparing. Some council members laughed at the warnings. "They are still weak," one said. "Even their largest machines would crumble against a proper attack. We have nothing to fear from them. It is arrogance to think otherwise." But others disagreed. "Arrogance has destroyed greater civilizations than this," another replied. "We cannot afford to wait until they challenge us openly. If we wait, it will be too late. These humans are clever, unpredictable, and willing to fight." The council ultimately decided on a middle path. They would not attack immediately, but they would test humanity. A small fleet of heavily armed ships would approach the planet to observe reactions more directly. The Cathari wanted to see how humans would respond under pressure, to measure their courage, ingenuity, and potential. It was a calculated risk, and even the most confident elders felt a strange tension in the air. As the fleet moved closer, humans below noticed anomalies in their skies. Satellites reported objects that moved unnaturally, faster than anything Earth had built. Scientists studied the patterns, trying to understand the source. Military analysts prepared contingency plans. The humans were aware that something was happening, though they did not yet understand the magnitude of it. Their curiosity and problem-solving instincts were already in motion, setting the stage for the first true confrontation. On the Cathari ships, the crew monitored every human action. They recorded construction projects, transportation systems, and patterns of communication. They noted the humans' cooperation and their ability to adapt quickly to unexpected changes. Even small actions, like rerouting traffic or repairing damaged equipment, were logged and analyzed. The Cathari were both fascinated and uneasy. These fragile creatures were learning faster than expected. Their potential was growing, and that growth could not be stopped easily. The council debated again, this time with more caution. "We must understand them," one elder said. "Observation alone is not enough. We must prepare for the day they resist or even strike back. And that day may come sooner than we think." Others agreed. "Yes," another added. "They are clever, and they will adapt. If we underestimate them, we risk losing everything. The galaxy itself may be changed by their rise," and so the stage was set. The Cathari would test humanity, but they were beginning to see that the humans were not as simple as they had believed. Each day brought new evidence of resilience, ingenuity, and courage. The humans were preparing in ways the Dominion could not predict. The first steps toward conflict were forming, quiet but unstoppable. Neither side fully understood what was coming, but the seeds of a challenge to the Cathari's centuries of dominance had already been sown. As the small Cathari fleet hovered near Earth, the blue planet glimmered in the sun's light. Below, humans continued their daily lives, building, learning, and striving. The Cathari watched with curiosity and unease, beginning to realize that their assumption of supremacy might soon be tested. For the first time, the Dominion sensed that the galaxy might not belong to them alone. The small Cathari fleet moved closer to Earth, its massive ships casting shadows that stretched across the atmosphere. On the surface, humans noticed unusual patterns in their skies. Satellites detected unidentified objects moving with precision and speed, unlike anything they had built. Radar systems and telescopes recorded strange shapes in orbit, prompting scientists and military officials to investigate. Yet no one knew the truth. Alien ships had arrived, and they were watching humanity closely. At first, people were curious. News outlets reported unusual objects in orbit, and online communities buzzed with speculation. Governments analyzed the signals, trying to determine whether the objects were experimental human satellites or foreign threats. Humans were cautious, but they were also naturally inquisitive. They monitored, mapped, and measured, preparing for what they could not yet understand. Their curiosity was instinctive, a part of their nature that had driven them to explore, invent, and survive throughout history. Meanwhile, the Cathari observed how humans reacted. They expected fear, chaos, or submission. Instead, they saw determination. Nations that often disagreed suddenly coordinated efforts. Militaries shared intelligence. Scientists collaborated on new research, and engineers worked to expand communication and transportation networks. The humans were not panicking, they were preparing. The Dominion scouts were perplexed, weak, fragile beings, yet capable of unity and rapid adaptation. It was unlike anything they had encountered in their long history of conquest. The Ketheri High Council received reports daily. Their coordination is impressive, one elder admitted. They are learning faster than we predicted. They do not submit, they do not flee, and they are preparing defenses even before we intervene. This is unusual behavior for a primitive species. Another council member frowned. Do they pose a real threat? We must consider the possibility. Perhaps we underestimated their potential. Doubt spread through the chamber. The Ketheri were not used to questioning their own supremacy. On Earth, humans were beginning to act on the knowledge that they were being watched. Leaders convened emergency councils, gathering experts in science, defense, and logistics. They did not know the extent of the threat, but they understood that something significant was happening. Humanity had faced challenges before, natural disasters, conflicts, and diseases, but nothing on this scale. Despite uncertainty, humans united under a common goal: survival. Engineers worked on upgrading satellites and communication networks to monitor the skies more effectively. Scientists collaborated with the military to develop rapid response strategies for possible extraterrestrial threats. Cities reinforced key infrastructure, ensuring that power, transport, and emergency systems would remain operational. The human response was imperfect, but it was fast and coordinated. Every day they learned more, adapted more, and strengthened their defenses. In orbit, the Ketheri fleet continued to hover, studying the humans' efforts. The Dominion had expected submission, perhaps fear or confusion. Instead, they observed resilience and creativity. Humans built devices to track alien ships, analyzed patterns in the objects' movements, and experimented with ways to respond if the visitors became hostile. The aliens were impressed. Fragile as humans appeared, they were clever, persistent, and willing to act even in the face of overwhelming uncertainty. As tensions grew, the Ketheri decided to make their presence known. A broadcast was sent across the planet in hundreds of languages. The message was clear: humanity must submit or face destruction. Your world is under our observation, the broadcast warned. Surrender your leaders and your defenses or be destroyed. Resistance is pointless. You are weak. You cannot hope to oppose the Ketheri Dominion. The message reached every corner of Earth. Millions paused, listening to words that carried a threat stronger than any the world had known. Fear was natural, but humans did not collapse under it. Leaders, scientists, and ordinary citizens alike reacted with determination. Instead of surrender, they sent their own message back. A single phrase in many languages, simple and resolute. We do not kneel. The Ketheri watched the response with astonishment. Humans had defied them, boldly rejecting authority that had never been challenged in centuries. They did not cower, they did not negotiate, they chose resistance. It was a decision the Dominion had not anticipated. In the council chamber, elders debated what this meant. These creatures are reckless, one said, but perhaps they are also dangerous. We must consider carefully how to proceed. Another elder added, their defiance shows courage and intelligence. This is no ordinary species. They are capable of growth, adaptation, and resistance. They may surprise us. On Earth, preparations accelerated. Engineers built new defense systems, scientists refined detection technologies, and military forces coordinated for a potential encounter. Ordinary citizens contributed as well, volunteering for observation duties, organizing logistics, and sharing knowledge. Humanity's response was imperfect, but it was united. Every individual became part of a collective effort to survive and protect their home. From orbit, the Ketheri realized that humans were unlike any species they had conquered. Their response to fear and threat was not submission but action. Their creativity, resourcefulness, and determination were evident even from space. The aliens had come expecting weakness. Instead, they encountered resilience, intelligence, and unity. It was the first clear indication that humanity might not only survive but might also challenge the Dominion in ways previously unimaginable. The first contact had been made, not with violence, but with defiance. The Cathari watched, uncertain and cautious, while humanity below continued to organize, prepare, and strengthen. Neither side fully understood what would come next, but one truth was already clear. Earth would not bow quietly, and the galaxy had never seen a species quite like humanity. The Cathari fleet hovered above Earth, massive and silent, waiting for a reaction to their warning. They expected humans to panic, to beg for mercy, to submit without resistance. What they did not expect was preparation. Humanity had united, combining technology, strategy, and courage in a way the aliens had never anticipated. From orbit, the Cathari could see cities lighting up with coordinated activity. Satellites, communication networks, and defense systems worked together like a single organism. On the surface, humans labored tirelessly. Engineers and scientists reverse-engineered satellites and experimental technology, adapting what they could to create defenses capable of reaching orbit. Military strategists coordinated worldwide, sharing intelligence and planning responses. Shipyards and factories worked around the clock to build the first generation of space warships. The vessels were not elegant like the Cathari's ships, but they were deadly, practical, and designed to exploit human creativity and unpredictability. In the North Atlantic, a massive construction facility launched the first of these vessels. It rose from the Earth with a roar, its engines powered by advanced fusion reactors. Engineers cheered as it broke through the atmosphere, joining satellites in orbit to form a defensive network. Across the planet, other warships followed, each one unique, each one a product of human ingenuity and determination. The Cathari observed, increasingly uneasy. These humans were not submitting. They were fighting back, and they were doing it fast. The warships were built with adaptability in mind. Humans knew they could not match the Cathari in sheer size or firepower, so they designed their vessels to strike where the Dominion would be least prepared. Ships could maneuver unpredictably, fire weapons in unconventional patterns, and even sacrifice smaller craft to protect larger, more valuable ones. Each vessel carried the spirit of its crew and the ingenuity of human science. The Cathari had expected weakness, but they were now faced with unpredictable intelligence applied at an unprecedented scale. As the human fleet gathered in orbit, their leaders coordinated a strategy unlike anything the Cathari had encountered. They were not trying to destroy the alien fleet outright. They were testing it, learning its movements, and finding weaknesses. The humans understood that intelligence and creativity were their greatest weapons. Even the smallest ships could become critical in the right moment. Every action, every maneuver was calculated to challenge the Dominion and to show that humanity would not be intimidated. From their position in orbit, the Cathari could see the humans' progress and realized that time was no longer on their side. The planet that had seemed fragile, chaotic, and weak was now producing fleets capable of challenging their scouts. Their sensors recorded the ingenuity of the human warships, and a sense of unease spread through the Dominion. These beings were clever, coordinated, and willing to act boldly. The aliens were beginning to understand that this was no ordinary species. Human scientists had also been experimenting with new energy sources, weapon systems, and defensive technologies. Railguns capable of firing projectiles at incredible speeds, energy shields adapted from satellite technology, and advanced communication networks allowed warships to operate as a unified force despite the distances between them. Humans had always been resourceful, but now their ingenuity was magnified by the necessity of survival. Each day brought improvements, each day brought adaptations that surprised the Cathari. The Cathari High Council watched the developments with growing concern. "They are building fleets faster than expected," one elder said, his voice tense. "They are learning, adapting, and coordinating. This is unprecedented. Have we underestimated them?" Another elder admitted reluctantly, "Yes, they are clever, determined, and united. We cannot assume their weakness any longer. Their potential is dangerous, and it is growing every day." The council, once confident in their supremacy, was beginning to feel unease for the first time in millennia. Humanity's response was not driven by fear but by determination. They worked tirelessly to understand the alien technology, adapt their own creations, and prepare for the moment when conflict could no longer be avoided. Every citizen contributed in some way, whether through labor, research, communication, or logistical support. The planet itself became a single organism of preparation, with humans acting as its nervous system, responding to every signal and every anomaly in the skies. As the first human warships reached orbit, the Cathari felt something unfamiliar: uncertainty. They had believed themselves invincible, the uncontested rulers of the galaxy. But here, above a small blue planet, humans were rising like a storm, unpredictable, determined, and clever. The Dominion had expected to intimidate and dominate. Instead, they were facing resistance, preparation, and ingenuity that they could not easily dismiss. The stage was set for the first true confrontation. Humanity's warships, born of necessity, determination, and creativity, gathered in orbit, ready to defend their home. The Cathari fleet, once confident and unchallenged, now observed a species that refused to bow, that refused to cower, and that was prepared to fight in ways the aliens could not predict. The first step toward battle had been taken, and the galaxy's balance of power was beginning to shift. The Cathari fleet hovered above Earth, vast and imposing, confident in its power. They had faced countless civilizations, destroyed planets, and crushed resistance without difficulty. Yet as they studied the human warships in orbit, unease spread through their ranks. The humans were not just present, they were ready, organized, and unpredictable. The aliens had expected fear and submission, but what they saw instead was courage and ingenuity. The humans moved quickly. Fleets spread across orbital paths, satellites communicated constantly, and warships maneuvered in patterns that the Cathari had not anticipated. Engineers had designed ships to adapt, and commanders had developed strategies that used unpredictability as a weapon. Even small, fragile vessels could become threats in the right moment, using speed, clever tactics, and coordination to challenge larger alien ships. The Cathari had expected to intimidate, but now they faced challenge. It began with a single human frigate approaching a Cathari scout ship. The alien crew assumed it was a routine maneuver, a small threat easily ignored. The frigate moved in unexpected ways, weaving between orbital debris, sending precise energy pulses to probe the alien shields. The Cathari were surprised by its agility and clever tactics. They responded cautiously, realizing that their enemy was not just acting recklessly, they were acting strategically. Soon more human warships joined. They did not attack blindly, but tested the Cathari's formations, observing responses, identifying weak points, and adapting instantly. The humans used coordinated feints, misdirection, and unconventional formations. Smaller craft drew attention, while larger vessels prepared strikes from angles the aliens had not predicted. Every action was a lesson, every encounter a test of the Dominion's tactics. The Cathari fleet had never encountered such adaptive thinking in combat. On Earth, commanders watched in real time. Analysts calculated trajectories, engineers adjusted weapon outputs, and crews trained to respond to unexpected changes. They were learning, adjusting, and improving constantly. Humanity's strength was not in raw firepower but in adaptability, cooperation, and creativity. Every obstacle became an opportunity, every failure a lesson. They used the planet's resources to maintain a continuous flow of supplies and reinforcements, ensuring that each engagement in orbit strengthened their experience. The first real exchange of fire shocked the Cathari. Human ships targeted weak points in shields, fired projectiles at precise intervals, and coordinated energy bursts to disrupt alien sensors. The Dominion's formations wavered as their carefully drilled tactics struggled against unpredictability. Even when the Cathari tried to overwhelm the humans with superior numbers, the human fleet adapted instantly. Ships maneuvered in ways that seemed reckless but were calculated, creating openings and exploiting them with precision. In the council chamber of the Cathari, tension mounted. They are learning too fast, one elder admitted, her voice trembling. Every engagement teaches them something. Our superiority may not last if this continues. Another elder argued for retreat, but fear of appearing weak prevented immediate action. We cannot underestimate them, he said. They are fragile, yes, but clever, adaptable, and they are not afraid. The Cathari had expected fear, but what they faced instead was defiance, intelligence, and coordination beyond their assumptions. Humans used technology in creative ways. Satellites were repurposed as sensors, small ships acted as decoys, and energy weapons fired in patterns, designed to confuse and overwhelm alien targeting systems. Each engagement was different, unpredictable, and effective. The Dominion realized that these creatures, fragile and imperfect though they appeared, were dangerous not because of size or strength, but because of ingenuity and determination. Ordinary. Humans on Earth contributed as well. They monitored communications, repaired systems, and assisted with logistics. Every human, whether on the battlefield or supporting from the surface, played a role in maintaining the flow of resources and intelligence. The planet itself became a network of support, reinforcing the fleet in orbit and ensuring that humanity could respond to every challenge. The Cathari fleet had been certain of victory. They had assumed that submission would be immediate, that resistance would be brief and easily crushed. Instead, they encountered intelligence, adaptation, and courage. Each human strike, each unexpected maneuver, challenged their assumptions and forced them to rethink centuries of tactics. They had underestimated humanity, and now they faced a species capable of surviving and even thriving against impossible odds. As the first day of conflict drew to a close, both sides paused to assess. Humans celebrated small victories, repaired damaged ships, and learned from mistakes. The Cathari reconsidered their approach, realizing that underestimating humanity had been a critical error. What had begun as observation had become a test of strength, and humans had proven that they were clever, adaptive, and willing to fight. Above Earth, the stars shone brightly, indifferent to the struggle below. Yet the outcome of the first clash had already shifted the balance. The humans had shown they could survive against a far superior force, and the Cathari had begun to understand that victory would not come easily. For the first time in history, Earth had faced an interstellar empire and had not bowed. Humanity was learning, adapting, and growing stronger, and the galaxy would take notice. The battle above Earth had raged for days, but humanity had not broken. Each strike from the Cathari fleet was met with adaptive countermeasures, clever maneuvers, and unexpected tactics. Humans learned from every encounter, improving faster than the aliens anticipated. Every ship that survived carried new knowledge, and every human mind absorbed lessons that could not be erased. The Cathari had expected submission, but instead they faced a species that refused to bow, a species that had become a storm of ingenuity and determination. From orbit, the human fleet began to coordinate a new strategy. They could not match the Cathari in raw power, but they could exploit unpredictability, using the enemy's assumptions against them. Smaller ships moved as decoys, drawing attention away from larger vessels. Energy weapons fired in patterns designed to confuse the Cathari's targeting systems. Even seemingly desperate tactics like sacrificing one ship to save many were carefully calculated, turning risk into opportunity. Humans used every tool at their disposal, combining science, strategy, and courage into a force the Dominion had not foreseen. The Cathari fleet struggled. Their formations, once precise and unyielding, faltered under the pressure of constant adaptation. They had faced countless species, but none had challenged them like this. The Dominion began to realize that intelligence, creativity, and courage were more dangerous than brute strength. Their confidence faltered, replaced with uncertainty and concern. The humans were clever, resourceful, and relentless. They learned faster than the aliens could anticipate and acted boldly when opportunity presented itself. On Earth, ordinary humans continued to support the fleet. Engineers repaired systems, scientists analyzed alien tactics and communication. Networks ensured that every vessel acted in perfect coordination. Citizens volunteered, shared knowledge, and provided critical logistics. Even small contributions made a difference. Humanity's strength was not just in its warships, but in its unity, determination, and ability to adapt. The planet itself became a network of resilience, reinforcing the effort in orbit and demonstrating that survival was a collective achievement. The Cathari High Council convened in urgency. For the first time, elders admitted that the humans might not only resist but could win. "They are learning faster than we can predict," one said. "They are clever, courageous, and adaptable. We cannot underestimate them." Another elder hesitated, fear in her voice. "We have ruled for thousands of years, but these creatures, they are different. They may change the balance of power in the galaxy." The council realized that arrogance had been their greatest weakness. Humanity had defied expectation and forced the Dominion to confront a species unlike any they had encountered. The humans seized the moment. Using knowledge gained from previous clashes, they coordinated a decisive attack. Decoys drew alien fire, while concentrated strikes targeted weak points in the Cathari ships. Energy shields absorbed and redirected attacks, while railguns and missiles exploited vulnerabilities. Even smaller craft played a role, harassing and confusing the enemy while larger vessels executed calculated strikes. The battle was a symphony of strategy, courage, and adaptation. For the Cathari, the outcome became clear. Their fleet was faltering, and their confidence had eroded. Even the most experienced commanders realized that they had underestimated the humans' ingenuity and resilience. A species they had expected to surrender had instead fought with intelligence and courage beyond measure. The Dominion faced not just a planet but a challenge to their centuries of dominance. As the final blows landed, the Cathari fleet began to withdraw. Ships limped back to the void, battered and stunned. Humans had not destroyed the Dominion entirely, but they had proven that Earth would not fall. Humanity had survived, adapted, and triumphed against a far superior force. It was a victory, not just of technology or strategy, but of courage, unity, and the relentless will to survive. On Earth, celebrations were tempered by understanding. Humanity had faced an empire and had survived, but the galaxy was still vast and full of challenges. Scientists, engineers, and leaders prepared for the future, knowing that the lessons learned in this battle would guide them for decades. Yet, for the first time, humans knew they could rise to meet any challenge no matter how impossible it seemed. Their ingenuity and courage had proven that they were not weak, fragile, or insignificant. They were capable of changing the course of history. The Cathari retreated to reconsider their approach. They had encountered a species that challenged every expectation, forced them to adapt, and demonstrated that intelligence and courage could overcome even overwhelming power. Across the galaxy, whispers spread among other civilizations. The humans of Earth had risen against the Dominion and had survived. The story of their defiance traveled faster than any fleet, inspiring hope and curiosity in countless worlds. Humanity gazed at the stars with a new understanding. They had defended their home, proven their worth, and discovered their potential. The galaxy was no longer a distant dream. It was a place where humans could shape their destiny. Earth had survived the first challenge, but the story was just beginning. One truth remained clear: humanity had arrived, unbroken and unbowed, and the galaxy would never be the same again.